I have my bottle. I have another bottle. I have my tape. I have index cards, my scissors, a paper plate, which you'll see, and I'm going to first put my clay, and I've sped this part up obviously. I'm going to put clay on the bottle. Now you'll see if the clay is unbalanced, the bottle will not stand up properly, which is why I need to make sure that I'm really balancing the clay in the right way on the bottle itself. Now here I go, starting to push it down. Again, I sped this up just so you don't have to see me go through every last little detail of spreading this clay out. Now it's still not quite balanced. You can see I'm testing it and smoothing it a little bit more, packing it in, smoothing it out, packing it in. And now when I try to balance it, well, I can spin it. It seems to roll fairly stably without a lot of wobbling. That's part of what I want to keep in mind in terms of it being perfectly balanced to fly. But I'll smooth it out a little bit more, make sure that it's all the way it needs to be, and then I stand it up. And maybe that wasn't quite balanced as it should have been. There you go. And it is fairly balanced. It's not wobbling while I spin it, which is one way to check to make sure that everything is set up properly. From here, I'll just smooth it out a little bit more. And I will start making, I don't think that was because it was not balanced properly. I think that was just because I hadn't set it down exactly the way I needed to. But even still, it doesn't hurt to smooth it out a little bit more. Make sure it's nice and balanced. And now when I start with my plate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the plate to make a nose cone. And it's always going to be unstable if I do something like that. Okay, so from here, I'll just leave it as it is right there, nice and balanced. And from here, I will get the nose cone made. I'll take my plate and I'll cut it down to the center of the plate. As you'll see, I'll not go all the way across the plate. I'll only go right to the middle, and from that point I can start rolling it in. And as I roll it, you can already see that the cone is starting to form. Roll it in a little bit more. Roll it in some more. And now it should be getting to the point where it'll fit. Well, not quite. It needs to be a little bit a little bit tighter still. And we'll keep going. It's getting closer now. I want to make it so that it actually goes fairly flush with the bottle itself. There we go. That looks pretty good. That's starting to look like an actual rocket. So now the next thing I need to do is tape it in the proper place. And I'm sorry, this went a little bit off camera here. I need to get the right spot on the tape, of course. And I'll start taping the nose cone in the proper position so that it will be pointing straight outwards. First, I need to make sure it's the right diameter to fit over the nose cone, and then I will make it so that it is facing straight out. There we go. And that should lock it into place. And from here now, let me just tear off a couple more pieces and get this. There we go. I have a nice point. I want to make sure I smooth out my tape so that it actually, there we go. If I smooth out the tape properly, then I'll be able to reduce the drag on the rocket. It'll reduce the air resistance. That's what I'm looking for. I don't want any drag. I want as little drag as possible. I want as little air resistance as possible. And now, this part I'll fast forward a little bit because I'm just getting a lot of tape and using that to smooth down the edges, to hold the bottle in place, and then to smooth down the edges in any way that I can, so that you'll see I'm smoothing around. There we go. And this should get a, there we go, let me smooth that. Should reduce the amount of air resistance, at least that all of these edges and pieces of the bottle and the nose cone could potentially offer a lot of drag. Now it's time for my fins. I'm making these somewhat the same as the fins I made in the very last video that I made, folding them down so that I have two edges. I can tape that in place. That's the first part I want to do here. I want to just get this taped down, and I don't need to really go through at this slow pace. I can speed this up a little bit in order to get it fixed. Now I want to make sure my fin is pointing straight front and straight back. I don't want this, in this particular case, I don't want the bottle to start curving or spinning. Now I'm going to try to make the fin a little bit sturdier by putting in a popsicle stick, which might help to stabilize the, I have a longer area in contact with the bottle now. It might help to stabilize the bottle a bit. At least that's the hope as I get this taped down in place. And this should work fairly nicely. I just have to tape the rest of it down. Okay, now you see it is a little bit crooked, but I want to make sure that I fix this so that the air is going to flow from front to back straight through. I can speed this up because this is a lot of tedious work. But again, you will be working on this. This is part of the creative process, though. Now, I'm going to make my fin a lot longer, as you can see. I don't know if this is going to have an effect. I'm going to give the fin something of a wing shape, and I'm going to have 3 of these wings in order to see if that helps increase the lift on my rocket and helps keep it into the air a longer time. I won't actually make the wing like an entire long pointed wing. I'll just have the fin with that cut tip. But I want to actually make the edge here flush with the front of the rocket, as you can see there. Fixing it in place. Getting rid of any loose tape that might reduce the drag. And from here I'm going to actually put on 2 others. But what I want to do after I fix this down a little bit more is I want to measure. I want to make sure that both of my other wings, I'm going to put 3 fins. I'm going to put 3 fins on this. I want to make sure both of my fins are about the same distance away from each other, because I don't want to have a situation where 2 fins are too close and 2 fins are too far away. So here I go. I'm going to put this, I'm just going to make a mark here to keep track of how far away my fin is on one side from the original wing that I put on there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and make a mark so that when I fix down my fins, they're each about the same distance away from that original fin. This is part of the strategy. I wanted to make sure that everything is fairly symmetrical on my rocket so that the fins there shouldn't be any issue with the fins being around the same distance away from that top fin, as I'll call it. Now this part I can speed up again because there's a lot of work that I need to get done here. I'm fixing down those fins. I'm going to put them into place with the popsicle sticks. There we go. And I'll do that on the other side as well, just to make sure that everything is fairly close to the same. And I'll fix this down. All right. Now I can see that it's fairly symmetrical right now. That was kind of my goal. And now I just want to stabilize these again the same way that I've done it previously, so that I have my other larger craft sticks holding those wings more in place. And then I'm going to go for that same sort of a triangular shape that goes flush with the front. Now this may not work at all. I honestly do not know if this is going to be a successful rocket yet. But I'm going to try and see what might work in terms of getting this rocket to fly straight. You will notice possibly that the fins are not quite the same distance from the front and back of the rocket. That might interfere with how my rocket flies. I'll do a little bit of adjustment with that as soon as I get done taping everything in place. But again, this is something you're going to get some credit for doing, a lot of tape and paper and popsicle sticks. As long as you can document this journey and really make an effort to show that this is the best you can do, then you're going to get a fine grade and there's nothing to worry about. So now that I have this pretty much taped down as I want it, I'm going to just reinforce it a little bit, smooth it out so there's less drag. And you'll be able to see, now that's not the right balance. I'll have to turn it. But I just want to make sure you can see that the fins are fairly well locked in place. Now that's where you can see it's actually symmetrical. The fins are each about the same distance. The side fins are each about the same distance away from the top fin, which is where I want it to be. And now when I launch my rocket, it should actually... Well, now I'm going to okay. Before I go forward with that, I want to make sure all of the fins are about the same length. You may have noticed that the one fin didn't go back as far as the other fin, so I'm just going to add a little bit of tape to lengthen out that fin a little bit. I want to make sure that it's symmetrical not only in terms of the distance away from that top fin, but I also want to make sure that they're all kind of the same. The back part is all the same distance away from the back of the bottle. And as you can see, the back of the bottle is where that cap used to go, because that's where we're going to actually launch our rocket. Now with this locked in place, I think we're ready to give it a try. So we will give this a try on Monday when we're in school.